The night on planet Vera 9 was darker than space itself. Cold winds ran across the empty red dunes, whispering through broken metal ruins, remains of a forgotten war. Above, two pale moons hung like silver eyes. Watching silently, Ethan Cole, a lone human explorer, sat beside the small campfire outside his ship, Nomad 1. His supplies were low, oxygen was rationed, and his food replicator had failed 3 days ago. He was tired, hungry, and completely alone, or so he thought. As he stared into the flames, he heard it. A faint, trembling sound like a soft whimper carried by the wind. He froze. Not possible. He whispered to himself. The sound came again, closer this time. Ethan reached for his pulse pistol, his fingers trembling slightly. He turned the flashlight toward the darkness between two rocks. Something small moved, something alive. Slowly it stepped into the light. A small creature, thin, weak, shaking. Its fur covered in dust and blood. Its golden eyes glowed faintly in the dark. It looked like a mix between a tiger cub and a wolf, with strange blue stripes running along its back. The creature stared at him and whimpered again. Ethan lowered his weapon. "It's just a baby," he murmured. The cub stumbled forward, sniffing at the air. Its ribs showed through its skin. It hadn't eaten in days. Ethan hesitated. On Earth, he was a soldier, trained to fight, not to care. But looking at that little creature, something deep inside him stirred. Something human. He opened his pack and took out his last energy ration bar. He broke it into small pieces and placed them on the ground. The cub sniffed, then crawled closer and began to eat. Ethan smiled faintly. "Easy, little one. It's okay." For a moment, the firelight flickered on both of them, man and alien, sharing food under two moons. When the cub finished, it looked up at him with wide eyes. Then it made a soft chirping sound, almost like a thank you. Ethan reached out his hand slowly. The cub sniffed his fingers, then gently pressed its head against his palm. Ethan felt warmth rise in his chest. "You're welcome, buddy," he said softly. "Guess we both needed some company." But then, the cub's ears twitched. Its eyes widened. It looked toward the dark mountains and let out a low growl. A warning. Ethan stood up quickly. "What is it?" The cub backed away, still staring into the black distance. Then it gave a sharp cry, almost like a signal, and ran off into the darkness. "Hey, wait!" Ethan shouted, but it vanished among the rocks. He sighed and turned off his flashlight. Weird little thing. He sat back near the fire, thinking about how lonely the universe felt sometimes. But then the ground shook, at first just a soft tremor. Then stronger. Stones rolled down from nearby cliffs. The firelight danced wildly as a deep echoing growl came from the shadows. Ethan grabbed his weapon again. His heart pounded. The scanner on his wrist beeped rapidly. Something massive was approaching. Fast. From the darkness, two glowing eyes appeared. Much larger, much brighter, like twin suns burning gold. A heavy, graceful shape emerged from the shadows, fur shimmering under moonlight, muscles rippling with silent power. It was the same species as the cub, but huge, elegant, and terrifyingly beautiful. Her eyes locked on Ethan, intelligent, wild, and furious. Ethan froze. "Oh no." The alien tigress let out a low growl that shook his bones. She stepped closer, and he could see the sharp fangs beneath her lips, the scars on her body, the way her tail flicked like lightning. He realized she wasn't here by accident. She was the cub's mother, and she had come because her child had told her. Ethan raised his hand slowly. "Listen, I didn't hurt it," he said, voice shaking. "I helped it. It was starving." The tigress stopped, her golden eyes burning through him. For a few seconds there was silence, only the sound of wind and his heartbeat. Then the cub appeared beside her, chirping softly. The tigress looked down at her child. Then at Ethan again. She tilted her head slightly, curious, maybe confused. The firelight reflected in her eyes like liquid gold. Ethan didn't move. He knew that one wrong gesture, and she'd tear him apart. Then suddenly, she stepped forward and sniffed the air near him. Her growl faded into a deep rumbling sound, almost like a purr. Ethan blinked, not daring to breathe. The tigress looked at him one last time, then turned away into the darkness, the cub following close behind. Ethan sat frozen, staring into the night, his heart racing. He had fed a starving alien cub. And now, Its mother knew who he was. Morning came slowly on Vera 9. The twin suns rose behind the crimson hills, painting the desert in gold and scarlet light. Ethan hadn't slept. His mind kept replaying what he had seen last night. The glowing eyes, the enormous tigress, the strange look she had given him before disappearing into the dark. He sat near the dying fire, staring at the sand where the cub had eaten. The small paw prints were still there, real, not a dream. Great, he muttered. I just fed a baby alien tiger, and now its mom knows where I live. He tried to laugh at his own joke, but it came out hollow. His wrist scanner beeped, reminding him of reality. Oxygen level 38%. Food 1 day left. Power critical. He needed to find a way off this planet soon or he'd die here, alone, except for the memories of glowing eyes and a hungry cub. Ethan checked his ship's console. The transmitter was still broken. The storm 2 nights ago had fried the antenna. He'd have to fix it manually, outside the ship, near the wrecked communication tower. He grabbed his tools and stepped into the harsh morning wind. For hours, he worked under the hot suns trying to realign the metal plates. Sweat rolled down his face. His hands trembled from exhaustion. Finally, when he managed to connect the final wire, a soft hum came from the tower. The signal was alive again. Ethan smiled weakly. Finally, maybe someone out there will hear me. He pressed the emergency beacon. This is Ethan Cole, human explorer, stranded on Vera 9, requesting immediate extraction. Coordinates transmitting now. Silence, then static. No response. He sighed. Figures. As he turned to leave, he noticed something strange in the sand. Deep claw marks circling around his camp. His pulse quickened. They weren't there earlier. She came back. He whispered. Ethan scanned the area, but there was no movement. Just wind and silence. Yet he could feel it. Eyes watching him from somewhere unseen. He returned to camp slowly, every step careful. His weapon stayed ready in his hand. When he reached the fire pit, he stopped. Something was lying there, a piece of meat, raw red, freshly killed. It wasn't human food, but clearly a gift. Ethan stared in disbelief. She brought me food? He crouched down, studying it closely. It was from a desert beast called a vorak, dangerous and fast. No human could kill one without heavy gear. The tigress had hunted it easily. The realization hit him hard. She had brought it for him. Why? Gratitude? Curiosity? Or was it a test? Ethan decided not to eat it, not yet. But he placed a small metallic trinket from his ship on the ground, a shiny navigation chip. He didn't know why he did it, maybe to say thank you, in his own human way. As the suns began to set, painting the dunes in long shadows, Ethan heard the familiar sound again. Soft, cautious footsteps. He looked up. The cub had returned. It walked closer, tail swaying, eyes curious. Behind it, in the distance, he could see her, the mother. Watching, the cub approached the navigation chip, sniffed it, then looked at Ethan. He smiled. You remember me, huh? The cub chirped, almost like a laugh. Ethan sat still as it came even closer, until it brushed its head gently against his leg. He froze, afraid to move. Then slowly he reached out and scratched behind its ear. The fur was warm, softer than it looked. The cub purred, a deep vibrating sound that made the air hum. From afar the tigress watched silently, her golden eyes glowing in the fading light. For a moment the human and the alien shared something wordless, a fragile connection, built from food and kindness. Then the cub turned back, running to its mother. The tigress stepped forward, her gaze fixed on Ethan. No growl this time. Just calm silence. Ethan swallowed hard. You're welcome, he said softly, unsure if she could understand. The tigress blinked once, slow, deliberate, then disappeared into the shadows again. Ethan stood there long after they were gone. His heart was still racing, but this time not from fear. Something had changed. They weren't enemies anymore. He didn't know it yet. But that simple act, sharing food with an alien, had just rewritten a law older than stars themselves. And far beyond the dunes, in the dark mountains, other eyes were watching too. Something else had seen the human, and the tigress, something that didn't like peace. The wind carried a faint roar, not from her, Not from the cub, but from something much, much bigger. Ethan looked up toward the mountains, his blood running cold. He wasn't alone anymore. But maybe he should have been. The wind howled across the red desert like a living thing. Sand twisted into spirals, dancing under the light of the twin moons. The air smelled of iron and smoke. Ethan Cole stood outside his camp, staring at the horizon, where something dark and huge was moving among the dunes. It wasn't the tigress, it wasn't the cub. This was something else. His scanner blinked red. Lifeform detected, class unknown, size massive. Ethan's pulse quickened. That's bigger than a shuttle. He turned off the scanner. The sound might attract attention. Quietly, he crouched near the rocks, eyes fixed on the movement in the distance. He could just barely make out a shape. Long legs, a hunched back, and a face hidden behind shifting dust. It was hunting. Not him, not yet. But something out there was going to die tonight. A scream echoed, sharp and short. The creature struck. Even from far away, Ethan could see the sand burst like an explosion. Then silence again. He swallowed hard. So, the desert has more than one monster. As he stepped back toward his camp, his wrist communicator buzzed, a weak signal crackling through the static. Ethan Cole, this is Command. Do you copy? His heart jumped. Command, yes, I copy. This is Cole. I'm alive. Signal weak. Coordinates locked. We're sending... Static swallowed the rest. The transmission cut off. He shouted into the device, No, don't lose me now. Nothing. The storm was too strong. He was alone again, but not for long. Behind him, the sand shifted. A soft growl, low and deep, rolled through the air. Ethan froze. Slowly, he turned around. The cub stood there, half hidden behind a rock. Its fur was dusty, its eyes glowing softly. It looked frightened. Its tail flicked nervously. Ethan crouched. Hey, easy. What's wrong? The cub chirped, sharply, looking back toward the dunes, the same direction where that dark shape had vanished. Then it looked at him again, whining. You're warning me, aren't you? The cub chirped again, more urgent this time. Then it turned and ran. Not toward the mountains, but toward the predator's hunting ground. Wait, where are you going? Ethan shouted, running after it. The sands burned his feet through his boots, but he didn't stop. He followed the glowing blue stripes of the cub as they shimmered in the moonlight ahead of him. After a few minutes, he saw her, the mother tigress, standing on a ridge, her massive body tense, eyes locked on the dunes below. She looked almost like a statue made of golden shadow. Ethan climbed up beside her, breathing hard. You sense it too, don't you? The tigress growled softly, never taking her eyes off the darkness ahead. Her fur bristled. Then Ethan saw it, the creature rising from the sand. It was like a nightmare brought to life. 12 feet tall, with 4 clawed arms and a mouth lined with red teeth that shimmered like glass. Its body was made of rough scales, blending with the desert. 2 black eyes glowed faintly from its skull-like face. Ethan whispered, Oh, hell. The cub growled, tiny, brave, foolish. The creature turned toward them. The tigress roared, a sound so powerful it shook the dunes. The beast responded with its own shriek, deeper and crueler. Then it charged. Sand exploded as the 2 giants collided. The tigress leapt high, claws flashing like silver. The monster slammed into her, throwing her into a rock wall. She hit hard, dust flying everywhere. No! Ethan shouted. Without thinking, he grabbed his plasma rifle and fired. Blue light burned through the storm, striking the creature's back. The thing turned, eyes locking on him. Yeah, you see me now, you ugly freak, Ethan shouted, firing again. The creature roared, furious. It lunged toward him, claws slicing through the air. He rolled aside, barely escaping, his rifle overheated, dead. The cub leapt at the monster's leg, biting hard. The beast swung, tossing the little one aside. Ethan ran toward it, throwing a flare straight into its face. The bright light blinded it for a second, just enough. The tigress rose again, blood shining on her fur. She pounced, claws digging into the monster's neck. With one final roar, she ripped its throat open. The creature staggered, shuddered, and fell, crashing into the sand like a collapsing tower. Silence. Only wind and the sound of Ethan's heart. He dropped to his knees, gasping. The cub limped toward its mother. She nuzzled it gently, then turned her gaze to Ethan. This time she didn't growl. Instead, she lowered her head, a gesture of respect. Ethan blinked, stunned. "Did you just thank me?" The tigress blinked slowly, eyes calm. Then she turned and walked into the dunes, the cub beside her. Ethan watched them go, feeling something he hadn't felt in years: pride. He had stood beside an alien, not as prey, not as an enemy, but as an ally. But as he looked toward the horizon, the sand began to move again. More shapes, more movement. The predator wasn't alone, and something far worse was coming. The desert was silent again. Too silent. Only the soft hiss of shifting sand moved through the air. Ethan stood beside the carcass of the dead predator, its body already being swallowed by the dunes. The smell of blood mixed with the hot wind, stinging his throat. He stared at the tigress and her cub disappearing into the distance. Part of him wanted to follow. Another part whispered that he should fix his ship and leave this cursed planet before it killed him too. But deep inside, he knew something had changed. This world was no longer just a place to survive. It was something bigger, something alive. His scanner blinked weakly, showing faint energy readings under the surface. Strange, almost rhythmic. "Movement underground," he murmured. The reading pulsed again, like a heartbeat. He crouched beside the predator's corpse and noticed something glowing faintly beneath its skin. Small blue crystals pulsing like veins of light. "What the hell is this?" he whispered, touching one. Instantly, his wrist console reacted and the signal spiked. Energy, pure and stable. The crystals were power sources. "Command would kill to study this," he said under his breath. "This could fuel ships for decades." He looked toward the mountains. The tigress's species might live there, near more of these crystals. Maybe that's why they hunted the predators, to protect the source. And maybe they weren't just animals at all. As the twin suns began to rise again, Ethan dragged the crystal out carefully and placed it in a metal case. His camp flickered with new power, lights glowing bright for the first time in days. Finally, some luck, he said. But luck never lasted long on Vera 9. Hours later, while repairing the ship's antenna, Ethan felt it, a deep vibration under the ground. It was stronger than before. He dropped his tools and knelt, pressing a hand to the sand. The vibration repeated. Then again, boom, boom, boom. He looked up. Dust clouds were forming along the horizon, stretching for miles. "Don't tell me," he whispered. Then the ground split open. A crack tore through the desert floor, and from it came a sound like thunder mixed with a scream. The air shimmered with heat and energy as several smaller creatures burst out, similar to the predator he had fought, but faster, sleeker, hungrier. Ethan grabbed his rifle and fired, blue plasma streaking through the air. The first creature fell, its body burning, but 3 more leapt forward. He ran, sliding behind a rock outcrop. "Come on, think," he muttered. "They're tracking the energy crystal, that's what they want." He looked toward his ship, still glowing faintly from the new power cell. They were drawn to it like sharks to blood. Before he could move, a sudden roar shook the air. It wasn't human, and it wasn't the monsters. Ethan turned. There, at the edge of the dune, the tigress appeared again. Her fur glowed under the sunlight, her eyes blazing with fury. The cub stood behind her, smaller but fierce. Together they charged. The alien beasts screeched, scattering. The tigress hit one midair, crushing it with her claws. Another lunged, but she bit through its neck like paper. The cub dodged and attacked from the side, fast and sharp. Ethan fired at the third creature, hitting it in the chest. It fell back, twitching, then went still. When the fight ended, the sand was red. Ethan panted, covered in sweat and dust. He looked at the tigress. Her golden eyes met his. She was bleeding from her shoulder, but she stood tall, powerful. You saved me again, he said softly. The tigress blinked slowly. Then, to his shock, she stepped closer. Not attacking, not threatening, but calm. She looked at the metal case beside his ship and then at him. Her gaze seemed to ask a question. You mean this? Ethan said, pointing at the crystal. You want it? The tigress growled low, not angry, but warning. She took a step forward, sniffed the air, and then nudged the case gently with her nose. The cub chirped behind her. Ethan understood. You protect this stuff, don't you? It's sacred. He knelt down and opened the case. The crystal's glow painted his face blue. He pushed it toward her. Take it. I don't want your world's heart. The tigress stared at him for a long moment, then gently picked up the crystal in her jaws. Her eyes softened. A silent understanding passed between them. For the first time, Ethan smiled without fear. Guess that makes us even. But before she turned to leave, his scanner beeped again, rapid, urgent. He looked down. The reading wasn't underground anymore. It was coming from the sky. He stepped out from behind the rock and looked up. Dark shapes. Ships were entering the atmosphere. Not human, not rescue. Their hulls shimmered with the same blue light as the crystals. Ethan's blood ran cold. They're coming. For the energy. The tigress growled softly, eyes fixed on the sky. She knew too. The real danger wasn't under the sand anymore. It was falling from above. The sky of Vera 9 burned. Flames streaked through the atmosphere like falling stars. But they weren't stars. They were ships, sharp, metallic, and deadly, diving down toward the red desert in perfect formation. Ethan Cole stood frozen beside his half-fixed ship. His eyes followed the glowing trails across the sky. He counted 6. No, 7 ships. Each one bigger than a fighter but smaller than a freighter, sleek and armed with plasma cannons. He whispered, "They're not human." The tigress growled beside him, her golden fur glowing faintly under the heat of re-entry. Her cub hid behind a rock, ears flat, tail flicking nervously. The air buzzed with static and the smell of burning metal. The first ship hit the ground far from them, sending a shockwave through the sand. Then another. Then 3 more. Ethan shielded his face as the wind slammed into him. His scanner blinked rapidly, new signals everywhere. The ships were spreading out, scanning the desert, searching for something, the crystals. The energy source. They're here for that, he said quietly. The same thing your kind protects. The tigress turned her head toward him, eyes burning. For a moment, Ethan felt she understood every word. Above them, a deep metallic voice echoed from the ship's speakers, harsh, cold, and mechanical. Scanning complete. Target energy signature detected. Extract and eliminate all resistance. Ethan's heart dropped. They're not just here to steal it. They're here to wipe everything out. The tigress roared, loud, furious, defiant. The sound echoed across the dunes like thunder. One of the ships turned toward her roar, lights shifting to crimson. The hunt had begun. The first strike. The ship fired. A beam of blue light sliced through the desert, exploding just meters from Ethan's camp. The blast threw him backward, slamming him into the sand. His ears rang. His vision blurred. The tigress darted forward, faster than any creature he'd seen. She leapt onto the rocks, claws glowing faintly as they struck the metal hull. The ship tilted, engines screaming. Sparks flew. Ethan staggered up, blood on his lip. You crazy? He stopped. The cub was crying, soft, scared sounds. Stay down, little one, Ethan whispered. He grabbed his plasma rifle, recharged it with the last power cell, and aimed at the nearest ship. He fired 3 times. 2 shots missed. The third hit an exposed vent. The ship wobbled, losing balance. The tigress roared again and tore through its wing like it was paper. The craft crashed in a burst of fire. But more were coming. 5 ships now circled above, locking onto their coordinates. Ethan ducked behind a wrecked predator's skeleton. Think, he muttered. Then his eyes fell on the crystal fragments left behind from the earlier fight. They still glowed faintly, humming with power. He picked one up. If this stuff attracts them, he smiled grimly, then let's give them something to chase. He threw the glowing shard far into the dunes. Seconds later, two ships changed direction following the false signal. "Good," he whispered. "Now we fight on my terms." Man and beast, the Tigress limped slightly, her shoulder still bleeding from the last battle. She looked at Ethan, not with fear but trust. He nodded back. "Yeah," he said. "We're not done yet." Together they moved, a human soldier and an alien predator, side by side through the dunes. The cub followed behind, small but determined. When the next ship descended, Ethan aimed at its landing gear. The Tigress crouched low, muscles coiled like a spring. He fired first, plasma shots hitting the underside. Sparks burst. The ship tilted just enough. The Tigress jumped, slamming into the cockpit, claws ripping metal apart. The pilot, a tall silver-skinned alien, screamed as she tore him out and threw him into the sand. Ethan fired again, finishing the job. The ship exploded behind them, lighting up the sky. He looked at the Tigress through the glow. "That's two." The Tigress huffed, almost like a proud growl. But then the last of the fleet appeared, the command ship, twice the size of the others, hovering above like a floating fortress. Its engines roared with energy. A deep hum filled the air, shaking the ground beneath their feet. From its belly, drones began to fall, dozens of them, spinning blades and flashing eyes. A small army, Ethan's stomach dropped. Oh no. The Tigress stepped in front of him, protecting both him and the cub. Her fur shimmered with faint blue light, the same color as the crystals. Energy flowed through her body like she was connected to the planet itself. Ethan watched in awe. "You're not just protecting this world. You are part of it." The drones screamed through the air, lasers flashing. Ethan fired, ducking, rolling, hitting one after another. The Tigress leapt into the swarm, tearing them apart mid-air, claws slashing bright arcs of light. The cub bit through another drone's neck, but there were too many. The sky rained metal. Ethan's rifle overheated. He threw it aside and grabbed a flare grenade from his belt, his last one. "Let's make it count," he whispered, clicking it. He ran straight toward the drones, shouting to draw them close. The Tigress saw him, and instead of stopping him, she roared in unison, echoing his charge. He threw the grenade high, a blinding flash. Then, silence. When the smoke cleared, dozens of drones lay burning. The command ship hovered uncertainly above, scanning the damage. Ethan fell to his knees, chest heaving. The Tigress limped closer, her cub beside her. Together they stared up at the massive ship. It wasn't over. Not yet. High above, the command ship's speakers crackled. "Resistance detected. Deploying ground unit, Alpha Prime." The air shimmered as something huge began to descend. Humanoid in shape, armed like a god of war. Ethan looked up, jaw tightening. Guess we just met the boss. The sandstorm had gone still. Even the wind seemed afraid. From the sky, the command ship hovered like a dark sun, its shadow stretching across the dunes. Then the light beneath it turned white, a blinding column of energy reaching down to the desert floor. Out of that light, something began to fall. It wasn't a creature. It wasn't a machine. It was both. The impact shook the ground. Dust and fire exploded upward. When it cleared, Ethan saw it, a towering figure of metal and flesh standing in the crater. Its armor was silver black, its chest glowing with the same blue crystal energy that powered the alien world. In one hand, it carried a long plasma spear, in the other a curved blade that hummed like thunder. Ethan's mouth went dry. "Alpha Prime," he whispered. The creature turned its head slowly. Its eyes, cold electric blue, locked onto him. "Human life form detected," it said, voice half metal, half monster. "Unauthorized interference. Termination required." The Tigress stepped forward, her fur bristling. She let out a roar that echoed for miles. The cub crouched low behind her, trembling but ready. Alpha Prime tilted its head. Native species. Hostile guardian. It raised its spear. Ethan didn't wait. He ran toward the rocks, shouting, "Hey! Over here!" The Titan turned, thrusting its spear. The beam missed by inches, melting sand into glass beside him. Ethan rolled, grabbing his plasma rifle, already cracked from battle, and fired 3 bursts straight at its chest. The bolt splashed harmlessly against the armor. The thing didn't even flinch. "Okay," Ethan muttered. "That's not good." The Tigress leapt. Her claws struck the machine's shoulder, tearing metal, sparks flying. Alpha Prime swung its blade, slashing her side. She landed hard but kept her ground, roaring in pain and fury. The cub cried out, trying to run to her, but Ethan grabbed it. "No!" "Stay behind me," he shouted. Your mom's got this. He turned back and saw the tigress charge again. She moved like lightning, her claws glowing blue now, the same color as the crystals. She slammed into Alpha Prime's chest, and this time it stumbled back a step. Ethan's eyes widened. You're using the planet's energy. Then the Titan struck back. It smashed her with its armored arm, sending her crashing into the rocks. The sound of impact echoed like thunder. Ethan ran to her side. Hey, stay with me. Her breath came out rough, her golden eyes fading. Alpha Prime advanced slowly, each step shaking the ground. Primitive life form. Power source acquired. Extermination. Imminent. Ethan's mind raced. The only thing that could hurt it was that same blue energy. The crystal power inside the predator corpses, inside the tigress, inside the planet. He looked at his ship. The crystal he had kept for study still pulsed faintly in the engine core. All right, he whispered. Time for one stupid idea. He sprinted toward the ship. Alpha Prime fired, missing by inches. The air sizzled behind him. He dove inside, ripped the glowing crystal from the socket and held it up. It vibrated in his hand, and alive, humming. The machine paused, sensors focusing on him. Ethan grinned through the dust. You want power? Come and get it. He slammed the crystal into his rifle's energy chamber. The weapon screamed with light, shaking violently. Sparks flew from the barrel. He took aim. Let's see how you handle your own medicine. He fired. A single blue beam erupted. Not like plasma, but like lightning. It struck Alpha Prime's chest, piercing straight through the armor. The monster staggered back, roaring in static. Its chest glowed red, cracking open. The tigress, bleeding but alive, saw her chance. She launched forward with a final furious roar and plunged her claws deep into the wound Ethan had made. Light exploded. The desert turned white. When the dust settled, Alpha Prime lay still, half buried in the sand, its chest split open, blue energy leaking like blood. The command ship above began to retreat, systems failing, engines stuttering. Ethan dropped his rifle, breathing hard. The crystal chamber had shattered, his hands burned, but he was alive. He walked slowly to the tigress. She was lying on her side, chest rising and falling weakly. The cub pressed against her, crying softly. Ethan knelt beside her. You did it, he said quietly. We did it. The tigress lifted her head slightly and looked at him. Her golden eyes glowed one last time, warm, grateful. Then she gently nudged his hand with her nose. For the first time, Ethan didn't feel like an alien on this planet. He felt like part of it. The ground trembled again, but not from battle. It was the heartbeat of the planet, steady, deep, alive. Ethan looked up at the sky. The command ship was escaping, but for how long? More would come. More hunters, more wars. He looked back at the tigress and the cub. If they come again, he said softly, they won't find you alone. The tigress closed her eyes, trusting him. The sun broke through the clouds, painting the desert gold. Man, beast, and world, bound by fire, courage, and the strange mercy of survival. But high above, far beyond the clouds, a silent beacon blinked in the darkness, transmitting everything Alpha Prime had seen. They were watching, and they were coming. The red desert was quiet again, but it was not peace. It was the silence before a storm. Days had passed since Ethan Cole and the alien Tigress destroyed Alpha Prime. The command ship had escaped, but the stars above now glowed with faint movement, hundreds of blinking dots slowly gathering in orbit. More ships, more hunters, a full invasion fleet. Ethan stood on the ridge beside the Tigress's den, the wind tugging at his torn jacket. He could see her resting below, her wounds healing. The cub played nearby, chasing drifting sand with little hops. The sight made him smile. Even here, life continued. He raised his scanner. Static filled the screen, but the signal was clear. Incoming transmission, that unknown origin. Ethan pressed it. A human voice came through, faint but alive. This is command to any surviving unit. We received your distress call. Fleet en route. ETA 12 hours. He froze, hardly believing it. Command, you actually heard me. He looked toward the sky. Human help was coming. But 12 hours was a long time. Too long. He turned to the Tigress. They'll come before the rescue does, he said quietly. Your kind won't survive a full assault. The Tigress looked at him, her golden eyes calm but knowing. She already understood. This was her world, her fight, and now it was his too. The gathering Ethan spent the next hours preparing, scavenging broken ships, setting traps, wiring explosives from wreckage. He used the last of his ship's fuel to rig a series of plasma charges around the canyon that led to the crystal fields. The Tigress helped in her own way. Her roars echoed through the valleys, summoning others of her kind. One by one they came, silent shadows in gold and black, big as tanks, graceful as wind. There were 10, maybe 12 of them, each bowing their heads toward her. Ethan stared in awe. "An army," he whispered. The cub chirped proudly like it was saying, "Our army." The night fell fast. The sky filled with moving lights, alien ships descending through the clouds. Ethan climbed a rock and looked up, his rifle across his back. "All right," he muttered. "Let's make them remember this planet." The invasion begins. The first explosion shook the horizon. The alien fleet opening fire from orbit. Blue plasma rained down, setting the desert ablaze. The sands glowed like molten glass. Ethan shielded his face from the heat. Then the ships landed. Massive dropships carving craters into the ground. Dozens of alien soldiers poured out, armored and armed with glowing weapons. Their eyes burned with cold light. Ethan pressed his comm. Detonating in 3, 2, 1. He hit the switch. The canyon exploded in fire. A wall of blue flame rolled across the sand, throwing enemy troops into the air. The ground shook under the force. The alien screamed in static voices, scattering. "Nice," he muttered, reloading his rifle. "Let's finish the welcome party." From the smoke, the Tigress pack charged. Golden fur and claws tore through metal, their roars mixed with gunfire echoing across the dunes. One alien tried to fire a plasma cannon. The Tigress's mate crushed it with a single bite. Ethan ran alongside them, firing, ducking, shouting. He felt the shock of each blast, the burn of sand in his lungs, but he didn't stop. The cub darted past him faster than light, tripping drones and leaping onto attackers twice its size. The battle was chaos. Fire, metal, blood. But it was theirs. For every alien that landed, 2 fell. The desert itself seemed to fight back, wind whipping, sand collapsing under enemy feet. The crystal energy pulsed beneath the ground, feeding the creatures' strength. This was their home, and Vera 9 was alive. The final stand. But then, the largest ship descended, a Fortress-class destroyer. Its shadow covered the entire battlefield. From its hull, a deep voice boomed, "Resistance irrelevant. Planet will be harvested." Ethan looked up, chest heaving. Not today. He climbed the ridge, pulling out the last charge, a core bomb made from Alpha Prime's remains. The blue energy inside pulsed dangerously, unstable but powerful enough to take down the destroyer if detonated close. The Tigress appeared beside him, watching. He met her gaze. "We do this together," she growled softly on an agreement. He climbed onto her back. The cub cried out, but she roared once, silencing it. Then she ran, faster than the storm, straight toward the massive ship as its cannons prepared to fire. The desert glowed white from plasma fire. But she dodged, leapt, climbed, her claws tearing through metal walls. Ethan held tight, wind screaming past. He could see the ship's glowing heart, the main reactor, through a cracked vent. He armed the bomb. "Go, jump!" The Tigress leapt into the air. Ethan threw the bomb through the opening, a blinding flash and then silence. The explosion swallowed the sky. The destroyer split in 2, falling like a dying sun. The shockwave threw Ethan and the Tigress to the ground miles away. When he opened his eyes, everything was quiet. The alien fleet was burning. The desert glowed softly under the morning sun. It was over. Epilogue. The promise Ethan stood, bruised, burned, alive. He looked at the Tigress. She was breathing, her cub beside her. He smiled, tears cutting through the dust. Far above, human rescue ships broke through the clouds. But Ethan didn't wave. He stayed beside his new allies. He looked up at the bright sky. "They'll call this the war for Vera 9, he said softly. But it was never just war. It was proof that mercy still matters, even out here. The Tigress rumbled quietly, pressing her head against his shoulder. He rested a hand on her fur. Human and alien, survivors of 2 worlds, standing together beneath twin suns. And somewhere in the stars, the universe watched. And whispered, "Humanity fought not to conquer, but to protect."